Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.co's weekend offering, our broiler chicken show. Hey, and there we are. We actually did this as a live video here on YouTube, so kind of fun. We've got our core group. I see a lot of our alumni here are in the lounge. We got some level oneers, some level twoers. So great to see. And actually, we were just joking before the start of the recording here that it's times like this that we really find out who really is into trading and who's really a trader here and who's just sort of showboating. Interesting too, at the peak of the insanity in the summer, we were up around 200 members online daily, and we've just slowly watched as the altcoin market has come back down to earth. These numbers are slowly dwindling down. Actually, that's not so bad, 130, 140 people on the site right at the moment. But really a great sort of sentiment. When you start seeing these numbers W and we start to see them trend up, then we know that quote unquote alts are back. So if anything, and actually it's really cool because we have one of our level twoers now. I think Kevin is in the level 2 program, but he and I, it was so perfect last middle of February. It was like totally dark and quiet and the market was really down, and the alts were in the trenches, and he and I were just sitting late, in the middle of February, terrible weather outside, just pouring over charts. And and then of course the spring came along, and I think Kevin was greatly rewarded for his efforts. So if anything, the bottom line here is, our job as traders is we just have to be ever vigilant, watching for our setups and just working our orders and working our book of business. And when the market comes along and gives you the opportunity to get paid, you better well get paid for your hard work. And actually, we even had that in the midst of this sort of meltdown here in altcoin land, which seasonally is very normal. We've been able to bang out a few winners along the way. In fact, I think the account's sitting at about 160, 170K or something like that. And just total business as usual, just coming to the market and just, if anything, what I'm doing is I'm sort of recycling the portfolio, trying to actually move my way out of Bitcoins and into these alts that are on their knees. So sitting 170, we've just sort of been bumping along here nicely. But we actually got a couple nice treats here. And this is what I was just making reference to earlier here is, you just got to work your book of business. And when the markets come along and give you doubles, you got to take them, right? I mean, and please understand for the broader audience, YouTubers that are watching these kind of presentations, I just so happen to have in my trading plan, in my personal trading plan, the simple rule that when assets double, I sell half of the remaining position. That doesn't mean necessarily you have to do that. You could sell a third on a triple, sell a quarter on a quadruple. I don't really care. All that really matters is you just do what you say you're going to do. So, and the point that I'm trying to make here is just simply when the market does pop up and it gives you the opportunity to make money from trading, for Pete's sake, do it. Because these rallies are coming quick and they're zipping away. So like that Ruby, for example, I think it's actually come right back down to below. Yeah, look at that, eh? I mean, you got to take these trades when they come. It's just bang, bang. And if you don't have your orders working, and I mean, wow, what a trade, eh? I mean, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but damn fortunate to get a fill right there. And the only way you're going to get this fill is if you have your orders working. There's no way you're going to be able to sit there at your computer and have this order get filled here just based on your discretion. I've never seen anybody do it. So I'm sure there's people out there in internet land going, oh yeah, I do it all the time, right? Well, long and short of it here is this model seems to work well for me psychologically. And so I feel very comfortable working this trading strategy. And it's just sort of how I approach running my business. So So like I said, the big message there was, for heaven's sakes, get paid when the market affords you the opportunity. Breadth wise, we are moving to our new site, so we don't have our screening signals in here. I've talked to the audience at length about that recently. But just the message specifically for our weekend broiler chicken show. I won't go too much into the broader market here, but altcoins right now, just of the universe that we're following, you can see on the medium term, they are starting to get pretty washed out. That's basically what we want to see. And when these numbers both go into heavily negative, then we'll know we're pretty close to a bottom. It is interesting, just on a side note, the stock market is as high and frothy as it is, so they're, of course, all very happy, bullish here. But it was interesting to see how the bonds had gone completely 100% negative on both the short and long term. And you can already start to see the bonds in the short term are already starting to pull themselves out of that situation. So long and short of it here as present, and really this should make sense to anybody who's been on the site and followed crypto for a while, the altcoins are in the process of getting washed out. And this is, seasonally right on cue. And if anything, what I'm seeing is this is sort of an ebb and flow kind of process. We just did have a big dip. And actually, when I look at the screen this morning, I actually just like to eyeball this. We just took one of our site members, Grim, took I don't know, he just put together a list of all the coins that are listed on Trex, and TradingView follows them. And so I just like to use this as sort of my breadth barometer, same thing as the dashboard there. Those are just off the Polo coins. But I just simply like to take my mouse down through the screen and just say, okay, where does it actually start turning red? Okay, well, there. So you can see that, on balance in the short term, you can see that bounce is starting to happen. How long lasting is this bounce? I think really what we have to ask ourselves is what's going on with the big boy. And Mr. Big Boy, simply climbing the wall of worry here. As long as we keep making higher highs and higher lows, then I'm inclined to feel more uppy. So obviously, and we had a pretty big battle level there just underneath 5,000. It was really interesting how price came up to this level. It couldn't quite tag that 5,000 and then had to back away. In a weird way, that sort of said to me that, at some point, it's such a powerful psychological level, and we weren't sort of at the appropriate seasonal peak time, that it still needed some play. And on the site, we were watching very closely with how price was going to act when we got back up to this candle body high here. And we got into the wick. This would be sort of our reload zone concept area off the lower time frames. And it was really important to watch the action through here. And as you can see on the weekly chart, clearly, boom, we broke through the top. And often, because $5,000 is such a huge psychological level, you often see this sort of knee-jerk reaction beyond. But my hunch is we're probably going to have to do some oscillation around this. It's such an important psychological level. I just don't believe that we can just go straight up here from here. And if we go down and drill down to the lower time frame charts, it actually kind of makes sense what's going on here, I think, with the upcoming fork activities. We'll talk about that in a bit. And as well, too, I think I would make, just the general idea. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. The last weekly W floor on this asset was around $300. So now we're approaching like 20x off of the lows. We're well beyond even, like, remember Dash did Amanda's penthouse move up into 400%. No doubt about it. For the general public who's watching this video, we are way overextended here. You just have to accept that. That's brutal reality. And, what's really interesting about this space is if you do consider Bitcoin and crypto a commodity, and I think there's a lot of similarities, the whole concept of mining, all that kind of stuff. The terms that they use. I don't think it's an accident that, especially like the proof of work sort of original concept for crypto, it's considered sort of like a commodity asset. And the old general rule in the commodity industry is, where is the base of commodity prices? Well, it's generally where the actual cost to produce the commodity is. Sometimes in dramatic demographic cycles, investor sentiment can actually push the prices of these assets to dramatic levels. And for the public, for the record, I think we just have to acknowledge, and as I said just a moment ago, there are public figures, some of them, and frankly, I don't even think he's telling the public the truth, but there are some people that have come out recently in the public and that have said that their cost to produce Bitcoins is around $1,000. So, how far does price get pushed here in the short term? Well, that's anybody's guess. That's entirely up to sort of the short-term sentiment of the market. And, I was a broker through the dot-com bubble. I watched very reasonable people like Gail Dudak and Ralph Akampora get publicly embarrassed and really humiliated through that demographic sentiment bubble that took prices way beyond reasonable expectations. And yet, as prices kept moving higher, people would laugh at them for saying, this stuff isn't sustainable. At some point, it's going to have to correct itself. So I wouldn't be surprised if a guy like Brian is actually labeled kind of like a Gail Dudak. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. But for the record, for the public, we should all acknowledge that, Mr. McAfee, I think is his name, right? He even came out and said, my cost to produce Bitcoin is $1,000. I think that's actually a little bit high. But nonetheless, is current price at $1,000? I don't think so. So, let's always just sort of keep that general message and that general idea in our heads. I would also say too, though, and it's really important in these kind of crazy demographic blow-off top cycle periods, that it's extremely dangerous for us to quote unquote call tops. I mean, extremely dangerous. And it also, the irony of it all is that Mr. Diamond may be completely accurate about Bitcoin. I don't think, for the record, and since we're doing this on YouTube, I don't think Bitcoin can be called a fraud, because if anything, it's completely open source. And as we said, Mr. McAfee's told you exactly what it costs to produce a Bitcoin. So I don't think fraud is the right word. But is Bitcoin fairly valued at current prices? That's another conversation altogether. And I think, ironically enough, in the game of investing, that's really the conversation that we should be having, not really whether Bitcoin's going to be here or you're going to get wiped out, it's going to disappear. I don't think that's the conversation. The conversation is really, does it make sense? Is Bitcoin really a good investment at these prices? Regardless of the story. Now, the interesting thing about Bitcoin, and we should all acknowledge this, for the public, is that because of the source code and the way the coin was built, and really the ledger, by definition, Bitcoin's price has to rise over time. So what's really interesting is the people that bought a Bitcoin here at $1,000 way back when, if all they did was they just were nice and patient, at some point the cost of production must be above $1,000. So ironically enough, and I've said this before, if you can sit on your Bitcoins for the next 10, 20 years, I think actually, yeah, even these prices are not bad. But in the short term, in the interim, and that's usually what most people's focus is, what's the next year going to look like? What's the next couple years going to look like? When I was a broker, everybody should understand this. When I was a broker, it was like written in law that whenever you sat down to somebody and you gave them a pitch, the pitch was always 3 to 5 year time horizon. As long as you label it 3 to 5 year time horizon, then even pitches to buy Bitcoin at $1,000, 3 to 5 year time horizon, hey, I'm doing fine. So that's the irony of it all, is if you have a 3 to 5 year time horizon, you might actually see this up over that period. But the issue here is we might very easily have to go through one of these correction windows that usually, you know, and anybody watching on YouTube, if you want to write this down, what is the typical bear market duration? Well, ironically enough, this is actually almost perfectly on course. Usually bear markets are about 1.5 to 2 years. Hence the whole point, 3 to 5 year time horizon. So that way, if you come in and buy the top, well, you know, 2 years of bear market, not doing much. And then year 3, 4, and 5, hey, I'm actually feeling pretty good. So I've seen that happen time and time again. For those people that want to come to make money from trading, I think you're just walking into a potential trap here, buying your Bitcoins up top here and expecting capital gains. If anything, what I would say here, ironically enough, is, you know, and what we really want to do as investors is we would just want to play edge. And we want to try and make sure that if we do take a trade, the odds of us getting paid substantially more versus our risk are in our favor. That's really what edge is all about. So, you know, when I look at price right here, I have to realistically expect this is a 61.8 to 78.6 retracement, just as you saw right through here. Same green box, no difference. I have to expect prices to go down to here. So if I'm going to buy this and I want a half decent edge, what does that mean reward-wise? I have to realistically expect. Well, I mean, and really, we just have a cardinal rule for our beginners is that we really want to see at least 2 to 1, or in essence, you get paid $2 for every dollar of risk that you take. So that means if I go and buy Bitcoins here, and I have to realistically expect Bitcoin price to go down to here, I have to realistically expect Bitcoin's prices to go up to $12,000 to justify taking the risk of buying this asset here. That's the hard part of this game. I mean, anybody can just simply go and blindly buy this here, but you have to understand the risk relative to the potential reward. And frankly speaking, the odds are not in your favor here right now. That's really what this is all about. You know, and what I like to do for, you know, new site members and new people learning to trade is I just simply, let's see if anybody in the lounge, what's the number one thing all new students should look for in their price charts to begin your adventure investing? Anybody remember? W's, all right, O'Neill, nailed it. Weekly W's are the best. Hey, there's Kevin with his weekly W's. So just pull up your price chart and ask yourself, when was the last time this thing actually put in a weekly W? And you can say, well, Brian, you know, this is a W, right? Going all the way, you know, down, up, right? Kind of W, and that's kind of sloppy. Sorry, let's try and do that a little better for you. All right, you go over there, and you say, well, you know, Brian, this is a W. But I like to ask all my students, I just like to say, if you were in grade 3 English and the English teacher told you to go up to the chalkboard and draw a W, what kind of mark would you get if that's the W that you drew for her? She wouldn't be too impressed. I mean, ideally, we want our W's to look like those W's out of grade 3 English. So down here, what I really like is we went down, we came up, we went down again, tested this level, and then went up. And so if we're looking for investment ideas, this is the kind of stuff we really like to see. So where is it? That's $300, right? It's quite a while ago. And if I take the trade here and I risk, okay, well, you know, Brian says you want to risk against W's. Really what that means is we're going to go like this. And we're going to risk to new lows here, and then 2 to 1 minimum profit objectives. Well, that's really looking for nothing more than a move against this old high here, which I think is very realistic, right? And that's sort of what we want to do as traders, is try and set ourselves up that when we risk our money, realistically we can get a nice 2-to-1 over the reward that, or the risk that we have to take if we're going to take that trade. So that's like the big message that I have for Bitcoiners right now is, you know, and really not actually even Bitcoiners, because Bitcoiners, people that have been in this space for a year or two, they look at a chart like this and they know exactly what to expect. This is going to be some pretty wild action in here, guys, no doubt about it. And if you wanted to come into this space and invest your hard-earned money, I would highly recommend that you concentrate on these green boxes. Highly, highly recommend you do that. And what that really means, and people on YouTube are going to be like, boo, hiss, hiss, boo, hiss, hiss, boo. What it really means is Bitcoin a good investment right here? No. It's just that simple, and it sucks. I'm sorry, but that's just brutal reality. Now, had you bought down here, you can see we run a nice little program called our little old lady Nanny Nibbles, where all she does is hunt for these weekly W's, trying to buy in green boxes, and she just gets her orders to sell halves on doubles. And you can see, and I've told the public, and I put out tweets and stuff, that she better have her next sell order working, because you never know what the hell is going to happen in here. Now, that's reality. But to come in as a new player here and be a buyer here and take initial risk on a trade here, I think is actually asking for a lot of trouble. All right, so there's my sort of political spiel. Investors, just cool your jets. And really, you know, come back in like a year, right? You'll come back when the recession happens. And then, you know, nobody will be interested in this asset a couple of years from now. My hunch is you'll be able to pick it up at a lot cheaper prices. But that's not today, right? So let's talk a little bit about today for the traders. Traders got to trade. I still think that there's a long-term demographic push going on in this asset. It's really funny to watch how the gold bugs have really had their hearts broken through this. They were all expecting the big push into gold as sort of the anti-money proxy. And I honestly believe Bitcoin has just simply eaten its lunch. It is interesting, you know, there was writing on the walls, you know, like this one gentleman on the internet, Simon Dixon, I think he runs a company called Bank to the Future. He went on a roadshow with an old-timer commodity guy, Jimmy Rogers. And it was really interesting to watch those two sort of go through sort of old world and new world trying to juxtapose each other. And, hey, Simon, consider this alternative. Or, Jim, consider this alternative. You know, this is technology moving at 100 miles an hour. What do you think of this way as a store of value, an anti-fiat sort of proxy? So I think to a certain degree that's caught a lot of the public's imagination right now. I also see, too, that, you know, now Bitcoin's on, you know, CNBC on a daily basis. Company executive, banking executives are getting embarrassed on a daily basis in the public forum. You know, you can see this thing's building to some sort of big crescendo here. And really that makes sense because, you know, in essence, we had you know, long-term demographic cycles basically pointed towards this asset coming to this peak right here. So everything's right on cue. It's quite shocking, really. I've been sort of musing about this double harmonic pattern that's developed here in Bitcoin. And 1.618, it's very normal extension level markets like to go to. The yellow formation here is called a bearish crab. The blue formation is called a bearish AB equals CD. And in essence, this points to a very significant technical potential trade location for reversal. This is my classic 200% is my classic parking garage concept, and it just simply implies an extension of this range above. And just think of the market working in sort of a stair-step fashion. So I still feeling as though that we're heading up into this window here, but something has happened here fundamentally that I think actually lines up nicely with this sort of thesis. And that is this window right here after the previous consolidation back in midsummer a rally ensued off of this point here, off of a fractal, and took us right back up to the old highs. And then we actually consolidated for a week or so into that BCC fork. And I'm wondering whether we're seeing the same types of behavioral pattern in price. And that's what this ghost pattern that you can see in the background is here. Is I just literally carbon copied this price action here. And I just said, well, what would happen if maybe, these silly humans repeated their same behavioral pattern heading into this fork. And I thought it was interesting when I overlaid that. I'm getting a lot of sort of similarities in behavior and price. And if we actually look at price itself, you can see we left a juicy wick up top there. We came up, had nice hard candle closes there through the weekend, and now we're softening here a bit. In essence, it looks to me like we're setting up a bit of a consolidation zone, very much like what we saw through here. I wouldn't be surprised, if I understand correctly, this is the BTC gold fork. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bunch of people that looked at this very much like the BCC fork, BCC, BCH, whatever you want to call it, and said, oh, goody, a dividend. And actually, in our team meeting here this morning, we had sort of concluded as a group that we're seeing not necessarily new money coming in, pushing this rally, but almost like a rotation where a lot of altcoins, we saw a lot of money flowing out of them. And we're wondering whether this was actually a big chunk of sort of the community going after that BTC and that dividend payment in the BTC gold. That's sort of what I'm thinking is going on right now. Obviously, we're just going to sort of let price develop and sort of guide us as to where it wants to go. But in the short term, I'm really thinking that we had the sort of the buy the rumor, and I don't know whether it translates into a sell the news. In this particular case, it was buy the rumor. We had a lot of FUD. Do you guys remember all the FUD we had around that BCC fork? Man, some people were saying, oh, Bitcoin's going to be over. It's over, right? So I think we're in store for like a good week of FUD heading into this event. And then, once that event is played out, I actually think there's going to be one more push that takes us up into this harmonic event. And then from what I understand, we've got one more fork that we have to deal with. And this one's a funny one because if I understand correctly, there's some people that are thinking the chain is going to fork, and there's some people that are thinking it's not going to fork. So I got a funny feeling there's a lot of uncertainty around this event as well. So yeah, it's going to be a wild ride here for the next little bit, guys. No doubt about it. I think, from the day trader's perspective, and not really, I don't know whether the YouTube audience is going to get too much out of this conversation here, but from the day trader's perspective, on the site, and actually Wayne's here in the conversation today. I hope he's doing well with his model. We just, as a demonstration on the site, have just sort of used a simple moving average system to sort of frame our bias. And as you can see, when the market pulled back here and broke down last time, it sort of served us well that at this point we had to sort of cool our jets on the long side. The market cleaned itself up. This made a diamond pattern on the hourly charts, and then we resolved back to the bull, and you go back to hunting longs. We had the big face rip move up. Interestingly enough, OKCoin actually traded above 6,000 here. That print 61.14. And what I also noticed too here, and we haven't seen this for a very long time, is that the forwards relationships have actually gone back into contango. We haven't seen that in a long time. And I do remember talking on the site us about these future spreads, how they were finally starting to clean up and actually starting to point towards bull again. So big run up above 6,000. Woohoo! And if anything, and I was putting out on Twitter and stuff, I was kind of saying like, oh, Jesus, hopefully everybody can see that if we do consolidate here and hold these lows and turn back up, that now we're actually coming up with like $1,000 price ranges for some of these setups. They're just getting insane. But, you know, I mean, that's a trader's life. You got to live by the sword, die by the sword, right? So, and even within these bigger setups, and keep in mind, this is a 10-minute chart for Pete's sake. Even within these bigger range setups, there are day traders having just a field day in here, right? Just buying against the bottom end of the range, selling against the top end of the range. And this, you know, like, I don't know where Thomas is, but this is like a $300-400 price range just here alone. So you know that the OK Coin Casino guys, they're just having a field day in here right now. So be careful, guys. Obviously, define your trading plans. And this might even be a case where lower time frame traders, the price volatility is just too much. You know, on OK Coin, for example, they have the leverage stop outs at like, what, 10%? So where's that? And that's 10x, right? If we go 20x, then that's 5%, right? So where's 250 bucks? So 20xers, right? 250 bucks. They're getting washed out all over the place, right? And you can see this is basically the maximum wiggle room for 20xers. So they're just getting washed back and forth, back and forth. I suppose, you know, if you can build your trading plan and be able to hunt setups that have this kind of wiggle room, so you can see the W's coming in here if you want to try and sneak in off these tails. But if we lose these lows, you better have religion and get the hell out of there, right? Don't try and outsmart the market, or this kind of market will punch you in the nose. And for the swing traders, the higher time frame guys, I think we got to watch the resolution of our bot entry level here at $6,000. It was really interesting to watch. You can see this W set up here. Then they M'd it out up top here. They tried to ramp it up, and then another M, then right back down, but didn't take out these lows, and W did. So it sure looks to me like through the weekend games that they're just having fun with the kids through this range here. We'll know that we got to get ready for the next $1,000 leg up if we can resolve through here in earnest. And if anything, maybe take a look and hunt for Davos and stuff like that to get real affirmation that the bottom has come in here. So something for you to think about there. So as it stands right now, though, based on our sort of higher time frame bias, I got to cool my jets. I'm just sort of watching on the sidelines. I'd like to see this clean up. I'd like to see the double bottoms come in here, the moving averages cross back on bull, and then we can start seriously hunting long setups through here. Okay, I don't know whether I think I mentioned this in the video here. You know, opportunities are abound in altcoin land, but you have to be very, very light on your toes, and you better have those open orders working to take profits. If you don't, we're going to see these opportunity windows open and close very, very quickly. So be light on your toes, folks. All right, let's maybe just finish off. Jesus, how long have I been talking here? Well, maybe we'll give a couple minutes here just to look at a couple of your ideas. I apologize, guys. I didn't mean to talk so much here. I didn't realize I was blabbing on as long as I was. Sorry about that. Okay, where did we leave off on Friday? Do you guys remember? Remember we looked at Salt, Glenn, we looked at him. Start was looking interesting here through the weekend. And for those people that are on YouTube just watching this, we do this show an hour every day on the weekends, or Monday to Friday. And we spend the second part of the hour-long broadcast just going through your ideas and just sort of picking them apart. And if I see something I like, I'll just go and buy it myself. So that's half the reason why I like doing this, is you guys are constantly giving me new ideas to look at. So looking at this start, nothing really to write home about. You can see we're just sort of trapped inside of value. Value low, you can see this tail right down in here. My hunch is there's probably some gaps down in here. Let's see. Actually looks pretty clean. Oh, there's a little gap right there. So there's a level to hunt after right there. So if we sync that across all, doink. There, okay, so that's right in that tail. You know, considering value and considering this little notch here, though, I think you're probably best to try and work your stink bids down in here. Yeah, so when we look at the entire range, right, you can see Hoag's value trade at work. I think we probably need to come down a little bit more here. You can see momentum, nothing to write home about there, and you can see OBV's kind of slipping here a little bit. So don't think I'd be a buyer today. And if anything, you know, hopefully you got some nice doubles off on these kind of pops up top here. If you do want to be a buyer, I'd probably have my bids working down in these areas. Try and find those gaps. There's probably some more gaps down in here. And there might even be gaps off the original bottoms down in here. So, all right. So certainly something I couldn't buy today. But get your stink bids working and work those stink bids. Vox. Good old Voxy. I haven't looked at Vox in a while. Voxels. Oh, boy. Yeah, you know, there's people in internet and crypto land that were never really impressed with this story. I remember Alex used to always say that this is everything that was wrong with the cryptocurrencies. I mean, regardless of whether you made or lost money, you know, keep in mind, guys, all I really want to do is just buy stuff where I think I can make money off of it. So I do remember last year we took our shots off of these lows and we got paid nicely on this thing on the rallies. We are right back down against those lows. I don't really know the fundamental story. I do remember when they was pumping this thing up here back in the winter time and the spring. He was doing like daily videos and stuff like that, but then those quickly went away. So really the question ultimately is, what's the fundamental reason to be in this thing? Is there any sort of drivers that are driving this thing right now? I don't know. This also reminds me too of kind of like NAUT, where yeah, they put a bottom in, there was a big ramp up, and then there just no follow through, and then you start getting the signs of failure on the other side, which means we're going to have to go after these lows. That's exactly what it's doing. So I do have a free position on this coin because I was able to get my sell halves on doubles, etc., on the way off, on the way up. I don't think I'm going to buy any more of this. You know, my little account, really what I want to do is just simply accumulate every single thing I can. I think I've got a piece of this. We'll keep it in the database. If we start actually seeing W's start coming in here, I can always go and buy back some of the coins I sold up top, but I don't really see any reason to get too excited just yet. Willie is stupid, so that's good to see. Too late to be a seller. You can see the divergences trying to come in here on momentum, but you can see the buying interest. There just isn't any buying interest right now. So, all right, what's next? One to watch over the next few days. Unconfirmed divergence. Yeah. I do see the unconfirmed divergence, right? I do see what you're talking about there, Jamie. I think it's just a bit early, and really these guys got to come out with some serious news that they're actually doing something to actually get the public interest again. I suppose, you know, you can see the value play. We're right down at the bottom of value. The question ultimately is, you know, actually that's, you know, no doubt about it. You're definitely down at the bottom here. Question is this thing still for real? If it was just all bullshit, then we just might melt down here. You know, totally possible. But as we said just a moment ago, no real signs. I mean, you see these W's down in here, WE type action down in here. We got to see something. Come on, baby. Give me something. All right. This Friday at 10 a.m. your time. Oh, okay. Thanks, Larry. Do you think the 5 to 8 month downtrend is unlikely? It looks like a lot of people expecting that alts will be okay, even with BTC massive downtrend. Well, you know, I think it's ebb and flow. I think that Bitcoin rallies into the end of the year here. exchange traded funds finally getting listed, Bitcoin's for real, adoption, blah, 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 blah. And that sort of marks a long-term cyclical top, maybe a few years kind of idea. But the great part about it is, I mean, just even compared to last year, even if Bitcoin gets knocked in half from current prices, which is very normal, that'll take Bitcoin down to like $2,700 a coin, which is way beyond what did we start the year at? We started the year at under $1,000. Holy Jesus. So, what I see happening is it's ebb and flow. And all the altcoins are just getting their asses handed to them. My hunch is as Bitcoin tops out here, then we see the altcoins start to see bottoms come in, and we start the game all over again with the altcoins completely washed out. And I don't know, did any of you guys in the lounge follow PIVX over the past year? Anybody of you guys over on YouTube, did any of you guys follow PIVX? I see there's a bunch of you over there. There's 45 people over on YouTube. Maybe it takes a couple minutes for that to kick in. But the question ultimately here is, when PIVX came out, I know a guy who took the course. He put $1,000 into PIVX, and in the summer he took out $100 grand. $100 grand, son of a bitch. So Bitcoin, maybe it tops out and it plays with the 38.2 for the next couple of years. That's totally possible. What is that? That's $3,600. And the point here is that it was before he knew me. And he was sitting there going, Brian, I bought this Bivix down at the bottom and I'm still holding on to it. What do I do? And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And I was like, just pay yourself a little bit. Just, reward yourself a little bit. Don't let it just slip through your fingers. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it came back down to earth. But anyway, that's here nor there. The point here is that, and I could very easily see wicks and tails. If this is the top, I have no idea if it is or not. But wicks and tails like to be eaten. We're going to leave a nice little wick up here. We got this big old juicy tail here. We could easily spend the next couple of years just banging around between $3,000 and $6,000. That wouldn't surprise me at all. And in the interim, we're going to have lots of doubles, triples, quadruples, quintuples. I think one day in last spring, I think I got 13 doubles off in one day. So, if Bitcoin has to play around in a range for a while, can I make money trading altcoins all through that? Absolutely. I don't know whether that speaks to your question. But yeah, if anything, and the irony of it all is we don't even know where the top on Bitcoin is. Maybe it's 10,000. And we get a 50% haircut, which means it has to come back to 5,000 where it is right now. And that's the correction. You don't know. So, and that's why I said it's really dangerous for us to call tops here on Bitcoin just over the short term. Let it go where it needs to go. And then, when the M's start coming in, that's when we have to start paying attention. Okay. OMG USDT. Let's see what we got there. OMG USDT. Bush. Yeah, we had actually, and I'm not quite sure if we even really want to look at this in dollar terms. It's just way too early. Lower highs and lower holes. Lower highs and lower lows defines a bear market. So as it's emming out here, I don't really see any reason to be overly excited about this. And we had one of our site members, Payman, who did some great work on this. And he determined that there was a big public float that was coming out through here. And if anything, this is an excellent testament where if you have fundamental information that's coming out into the market, that doesn't necessarily mean that the market has to break on that exact date. In this particular case, it took a bit of time, but we always have an old saying, whenever you see the market smiling at you, it's getting ready to take your money. And I think basically OMG put in a very, very polite, very well orchestrated smile. Hopefully everybody can see that. I think if anything, you might see some play back, because keep in mind this is versus Bitcoin. So you might see some play back of this range for anybody who's just watching this for the first time. Where this level right here, 61.8, is actually a really important level to Fibonacci, the Fibonacci sequence. And I used to work with guys on the prop firm desks that would just literally trade this level blindly. It's just their bread and butter. I often put this little M icon right over 61.8 because it stands for, one of the best crude oil traders I ever worked with, this guy named Brandon Rigo, who went by the acronym, the name Mountain Man. So you can see that Mountain here is coming in. He's at play, and you can see the potential divergences, kind of like what Jamie was mentioning on that other idea earlier. You can see the divergences trying to form. You can see that Willie is technically stupidly oversold. If you wanted to be a seller, you're way too late here. Could there be some play to come down and fill in this notch here at the bottom of value? Sure. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. But at the same time, too, could we easily have little counter trend rallies back to the POC? Totally realistic. And really, this might be, remember we looked at that USD chart, and it just looks like a train wreck. It looks more to me like maybe this asset goes up because Bitcoin price has to maybe just cool its jets for a little bit here, versus this thing actually being an outright buy. And really, until we start seeing W's, hopefully you guys can all see the kind of WE action, down, up, down, breakout. Till we start seeing W's on this thing, I think you're really best just to cool your jets. There isn't a big hurry here. But we can see the anecdotal evidence of bottoms trying to come in here. Soon. If anything, what we say is this is too late to sell, too early to buy. Make sense? Hope so. All right, where should we go next? BASD, a stock. All right, let's see what we got there. BASD. And actually, one of our site members, it was so cool, Jamie, he actually put together a list of stocks, crypto stocks, and look at these interesting little W's trying to come in here, these bottoms that are trying to come in on these stocks that are crypto oriented. Some of them I'm still working on this list. Jamie just put it together. We're kicking it around the lounge, but I thought it was just interesting. I want to get back and focus in, because I do notice that things like the Russell 2000 and stuff are starting to break out. So maybe crypto-oriented stocks are coming back into vogue. So we should keep an eye on those. Okay, where were we? BASD, and this was a stock somebody was asking about. So what are we going to do here? BASD, stock. All right, let's see what we got here. This looks a bit familiar. You can clearly see where you should have been a buyer. Hindsight's always 20/20. In fact, Kevin, can you see your Kavark here? All right, this is like textbook Kevin trading. Come fill in the gap, tag 78.6, like just brilliance trading there. Can I justify going in and buying this thing way up top here? No, I don't think so. And if anything, yeah, what I'm kind of worried about is this is actually coming into a selling zone here. So hopefully you can see it. It should make sense regardless of whether you do sell or not. Really, half of our job as market technicians is just to simply listen to the market's message. The market, ironically enough, is always speaking to us. Half the time it's speaking to me in Chinese, and I don't speak Chinese, which makes it awfully difficult. No jokes. Nobody like that one? Okay, Brian, shut up. The point here is China Tim. Yeah, that's why we got China Tim. Where is he? Get his wife to translate. Anyway, the point of the matter here is that if we just listen to the market's message, we should understand that coming into gaps, coming into previous structural failure levels, you can see I've drawn that line on here before. You can literally see the volume profile itself. If we just look at the distribution of volume, we came up here and we tagged what's called value high right there. And in fact, an old gnarly 35-year floor veteran that I used to work with, and we just did this class for the level 2ers over the weekend, is what's called the Hogue 80% play, where basically on this event where we put in a bottom and we accept back into value, into the purple here, then 80% of the time we should go up and tag value high, which we basically did. Can everybody see Hogue's 80% play here? And, you know, especially, you know, Kevin, you just did this in class. Can you see what we just did? Does this make sense? There's value low, and there's value high right up there. It's actually a really good example. You know, I swear somebody should like teach a course on this stuff. I swear. So there's a great example of Hogue's value trade. The problem here now is, you know, we go look at our indicators and, oh, Jesus, right? If anything, here is an absolutely perfect example of Willie getting stupid. And the bottom line here is if you wanted to buy this asset, actually, here, why don't we just leave it like that? If you wanted to buy this asset, this is not a good place to be a buyer. And really, if anything, what we want to see is we want to see this kind of action, right, where it's sauce or bottoms. So, you know, Willie, the oscillator itself is saying, hey, you know what, be careful here. And our MACD histogram is also showing signs that, you know, the strength of this move, even though price was making higher highs and higher lows, the internal strength of the move was getting weaker and weaker and weaker. Also not maybe the best sign. You can see OBV is actually emming out here, and potentially we're losing this moving average. If that's the case, then the trend in volume, you can see when it ems out here and the trend in volume gets going, So it is encouraging to see that the bulls stepped up here and they're trying desperately to defend this market. It's sitting right at a very vulnerable place right now, very vulnerable. So be careful there. And I suppose, you know, really, this is a German engineering company, right? So the question you have to ask yourself is what's actually driving this? And I have a funny feeling it has a lot to do with the euro and a lot to do with sort of political environment within Germany itself. And I've been very skittish about the German stock market. I'm a little bit worried about it. And if we go and look at the DAX, DAX stock index. Oh boy, so we're right up against old highs. You can see the divergence in MACD as plain as day, and you can see Willie nice and stupid here. So yeah, we are at new highs. That's encouraging. You know, show me a new high and I'll show you a buy, blah, blah, blah. You know, if you bought that new high, you got to risk all the way down to here. So a world of risk, and you can see all the holes in the charts. It looks like Swiss cheese. So I'd be very leery about going in and being a buyer of an asset right up here. That's not my style at all. And as I said, we're getting little anecdotal pieces of evidence here that, in fact, actually, you can see the bullish divergence develop through here, right? And actually, we have a lot of students who ask, okay, how does the bullish divergence play itself out? In essence, bull div, well, all right, bull, boom, bear div. That bull div has now been negated because now we've got this bear div that's now confirmed. And interesting, bull div, like oscillator moving up, W's, boom. Now we're officially stupidly overbought and quite dangerous again. So, and then also too, you know, we just look at the price action in here. I don't have necessarily a sell signal based off of here. But holy gap. Oh, Jesus, this looks like Swiss cheese. So at some point, they are going to have to bring this thing back down. So, okay, I don't know whether that helped. I hope it did. Whoever asked about that, what is that? That was Colin. Hopefully, Colin, that helps you out a little bit. Okay, one more, and then we'll call it a day. ARC. uh. Well, actually, it's interesting. A lot of these coins versus US dollar, they look sort of meh, iffy, wishy-washy. If I look at it relative to Bitcoin, it's probably right on its knees. Well, actually, it's a little bad. It's not bad. Well, hopefully you can see what I've been doing here recently. Got off some nice sells up here, so that's nice. Come back down to actually our last selling level. We were buyers down here. Playing with value right now. This gets a little dangerous. If we accept back down into value, then of course we got Hoag's 80% play. I think probably for the time being, I'd probably just cool my jets on this. Like I said, I've got free coins. I've been paid a number of times. If we do come back down to this original bottoming area, I might reload. You can see the bull divs are starting to form. You can see Willie's stupid. What's good to see is you can see OBV never really broke down in earnest on this pullback. So I could easily see the market accept and move back up. But I'm a cheap ass by nature. So cheap asses, if I'm going to be a buyer, I probably want to see it come back down into here. And as you can see exactly what I've been doing here. So. Okay, I've been talking for about an hour and a half. Hope you guys enjoyed that. What do you think, guys, in the lounge? Was that a worthy investment of an hour of your time? No comment? Everybody's gone to sleep? All right. Okay, I think we'll leave it at that. Hope you guys over on the YouTube page enjoyed the offering. Just a sample of what we do on a daily basis on the site. You get a nice little dose of Brian's PMA and rhetoric, and a little summary of what I'm expecting out of Bitcoin and maybe some other markets. In fact, on a daily basis, just so you're aware, I'm very interested in buying puts on the euro, and I'm also watching the U.S. stock market for opportunities there. And as well, we even have our fingers in some penny stocks and watching for level setups off of our venture cap investment model as well. So we do a whole bunch of different things on a daily basis on the site. So I hope the information that I've imparted today has been of some benefit. And first thing tomorrow morning, we will pick up. Somebody remember, we left off at ARK, and XRP is first thing for tomorrow morning. Okay, guys? All right, so enjoy your rest of your Sunday. I'm going to head off and hang out with the boy and enjoy what's little sunshine we got left on the West Coast. Have yourselves a great day, everybody. All the best, and bye for now.